Well, anti-government protesters in Libya do appear to be widening their control beyond the east of the country. According to the latest reports, towns and cities in the west have now fallen. Anti-Gaddafi forces have seized the city of AlJazeera, which is just 50 kilometers from Tripoli. Libya's third largest city, Misrata, is reportedly in opposition, hands too. Witnesses say tanks are now moving towards this city in the west. And back in the east, protesters have obtained weapons and tanks from the army there. They've said they will march on the capital, Tripoli. For the time being, though, Tripoli appears still to be in Gaddafi's control, but government forces have reportedly fled some parts of the capital. Al Jazeera's Lawrence Lee has more.
So what next for Gaddafi? Assuming he will not go voluntarily, his next moves must surely be predicated on where he believes he still has support and to what extent he can block his opponents from marching against him. A look at Western Libya presents problems for both the opposition fighters and for Gaddafi. The coastal road from the east is blocked at Sirte, Gaddafi's hometown, which he still controls. It's not a big place, but the roads either side of it are said to be controlled by armed forces loyal to Gaddafi. As such, it presents the biggest obstacle to forces from the east moving on Tripoli. Yet west of Sirte and still east of Tripoli, the rebels are said to now hold Misrata. The town has been the scene of days of heavy fighting, with the city falling and then being counter-attacked by pro-Gaddafi forces. But he now seems to have lost the army and therefore the town. Just as significant is the town of AlJazeera just west of Tripoli. Geographically, it's crucial. Latest reports from the town of 200,000 say after days of heavy fighting, the rebels are in charge in the centre, but the pro-Gaddafi forces are surrounding it. It's hardly surprising Gaddafi wants it back. If the rebels do keep control, it would leave Tripoli in a pincer. So what of the situation in the capital? The most recent images from foreign media invited by the Gaddafis suggest hasty attempts to clean up the centre and an area around Gaddafi's stronghold still said to be under his control. But contrary to Gaddafi's claims, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that Tripoli is not stable, and some reports have suggested dozens killed in clashes. Scenes from some of the poor suburbs like Tajoura in eastern Tripoli seem to suggest the police have simply melted away. It all lends weight to reports from Tripoli that Gaddafi's forces have been trying to pay local men to take up arms against the insurgency. There's no question the ground upon which Gaddafi built his empire is slipping away. His military options look increasingly limited. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
It's not possible to be precise about the number of people killed during the Libyan uprising. Ban Ki-moon says more than 1,000 died, but Libya's deputy ambassador to the UN puts the number far higher than that. And with Gaddafi threatening to open up weapons depots to arm civilians, there are fears of more deaths to come. Gaddafi's repeatedly said he will fight to the end, quotes, house to house until the last man is standing. Well, the protesters may well be planning their next move. Already we've heard from Libya's former justice minister. He's declared his intention to form a national council based in Benghazi to rule the east of Libya.
We've come up with a new constitution and strategy for the implementation of democratic elections in Libya under the supervision of international organizations.
Al Jazeera's Jackie Rowland is live in the eastern city of Benghazi, joins us now live from there. Tell us a little bit more about the plan to start running this independent of the government in Tripoli.
Well, at the moment, it's still in its early stages. As you just mentioned, the former justice minister is trying to get together enough popular support also across a broad enough geographical area. That's why he travelled a few hours ago. He travelled from Benghazi to Al-Baida, further east of here, in order to canvass support there. He's been meeting with elders, with tribes, with leaders, elders of various communities to consult them about the formation of this council. Now, the area that seems to be the most contested at the moment, where there seems to be the most disagreement, is with regard to people who were members of or who were associated with the authorities of Muammar Gaddafi. There have been a few people who have been seeking to recycle themselves, if you like, and presenting themselves as people who want to cooperate with this new council, but there are many ordinary people who are rejecting them. They say that they absolutely refuse to have anyone involved in this council who is in any way tainted with the former regime.
Jackie, if you just arrived in Benghazi unaware of the events of the last week or so, would you think it was an orderly place?
Well, it's not orderly. I mean, we are in Libya here, and it's pretty chaotic in many ways. I mean, there's a very heavy traffic, chaotic traffic. You can see a certain amount of damage, obviously the legacy of the fighting over the last 10 days or so. Obviously, as well, if you were coming to Libya expecting to see posters of the great leader emblazoned everywhere, then you would be in for a surprise, because they've done a fairly comprehensive job throughout the east of the country of tearing down those posters that used to adorn the roadside and builders. They've been ripped to shreds. However, having said that, there are signs that commerce and everyday life are starting to get back to normal again. Marketplaces are open, the banks have been open, shops are tentatively starting to open again. So we do at least seem to be getting this sense that what has happened in the east of the country has already happened. The fact that people are opening banks and businesses again, that you're starting to see more women out of doors as well. I mean, that's always indicative of how safe or dangerous the situation is. All of this indicates that the people here in Benghazi and further to the east aren't expecting to be the subject of any kind of assault or counterattack by Gaddafi forces at this stage.
Good to see you, Jackie. Thank you very much indeed. Jackie Rowland in Benghazi. In Oman, at least 2 people have been shot dead by the police there, according to witnesses in the northern district of Sohar. Anti-government protesters blocked roads leading from Muscat further east to the United Arab Emirates, and police then used tear gas. Several government buildings were reportedly damaged and set on fire. I spoke to Basma Al-Raji, an activist who's in the capital, Muscat.
At the moment, we're standing in front of Parliament. It's a sit-in to protest against the violence that's taken place against the protesters in Sahar State. In fact, what's happened, there were marches and demonstrations in various parts of the country since January. And in the past few days, since February the 18th, we're demanding reforms and changes in government and some cabinet members. Some of the demonstrations started yesterday southeast of the capital in Sur district, as well as in Al-Qatana, which is the main part of the city in Sahar. Then there were also demonstrations in Salalah, south of Oman. They all happened at the same time.
Well, that's the most recent news we got out of Oman. On to Yemen, where opposition parties say they'll be joining protests to bring down the president. Anti-government demonstrations against Ali Abdullah Saleh have attracted hundreds of thousands of people, but he's still defiant. Speaking at a meeting with senior military officers on Saturday night, Saleh said the opposition doesn't have legitimate demands.
The army and security forces have vowed to defend the republican system, the unity and the safety of the republic, until the last drop of our blood. This vow stands now. There is an attempt to split the country into north and south. We see the flags of the secessionists raised in many cities in the south on different occasions, and we see the flag of the Imam that portrays a sword and 5 stars ready to be raised in northern provinces. There is a conspiracy against the security and safety of the nation. It is a big lie that there's a difference between us and the opposition. There are people riding the wave of change and have no idea which direction the nation is moving. It's just stubbornness and arrogance on their part. Had they had legitimate demands, we would have listened to them. I have offered a series of concessions.
2 separate explosions have killed at least 14 people in Afghanistan. The first incident was near a dogfighting ground in the Arghandab district of Kandahar province. The local police commander is believed to have been the target. Elsewhere, witnesses say at least one ISAF soldier was killed. AlJazeera's Sue Turton is in Kabul.
The first of these 2 attacks on Kandahar province, where we are now, was northeast of here in the Arghandab district. A police patrol vehicle was patrolling an area where a dogfight was being held when their vehicle hit an IED, killing all 4 police officers. Many civilians who'd been at the dogfight then rushed to the scene when a second IED exploded, killing 10 civilians, injuring another police officer and another civilian. The second attack happened along the main road from where we are here on Highway 1, just west of Kandahar city. An ISAF military vehicle hit an IED. Eyewitnesses say that one ISAF soldier was killed, another injured, and a young boy was caught up in the attack and taken to hospital. The Taliban has claimed responsibility. It says it believes it killed 6 soldiers. ISAF have yet to confirm any casualties.
Egypt's former Interior Minister is going to appear before a criminal court accused of money laundering. Let's go to Anita McNaught, our correspondent in Cairo. There he is there. Just remind us who this man is, Anita, and tell us what's going to happen and when.
Well, this has been expected. His name is Habib al-Adli. He was perhaps the most feared minister in Mubarak's cabinet because, of course, he was in charge of the police, the prisons, and the entire apparatus of state security, which came to be viewed by ordinary Egyptians as being an apparatus for maintaining the security of the president and his interests, rather than for protecting any of the members of the Egyptian public. You'll remember, of course, the very controversial role that the Egyptian police played in the early days of the crackdown on the protests, and the fact that when they were withdrawn from the streets, thugs mysteriously appeared and continued to crack down in a different form. Now, this minister was the least popular, it has to be said, in Egypt. The investigation into him was launched a few days ago. His assets were frozen, a travel ban put in place, and now finally we learn he is to go to trial. But interestingly, on charges of money laundering, not any charges to do with any actions he might have been responsible for during the turbulent days of the crackdown on the protests.
Is he accused of laundering money for himself or perhaps for others higher up the food chain?
Well, that remains to be seen in the investigation. It is charges that affect him personally. But what is the situation here is that whatever he's charged with now, that could be added to. The charges themselves don't necessarily seem serious enough for what most Egyptians feel this man is ultimately responsible for. But it isn't to say that now he's facing charges in the court, more evidence won't be forthcoming, and the net, as they say, will widen.
And one other item of news, I remember saying during the course of the troubles that the stock market was still shut. We were going to get 48 hours notice when it reopened. Well, what's the story there?
Well, we have been given notice. The Egyptian stock market is to open again on Tuesday, we've been told today. There was an announcement from the stock market. It'll be very interesting to see what happens when it does, because, of course, the Egyptian authorities closed down the stock market when it began a calamitous slide, quite understandable given the situation in the country. But, of course, it reopens with a whole new commercial landscape here. The once safe Egyptian businesses that people invested in so confidently